Engineering departments are currently grappling with a fundamental shift in the classroom. Problems that once required hours of complex manual calculation are now being solved in seconds through artificial intelligence. Many universities have responded by attempting to insulate themselves. They are blacklisting websites, updating honor codes, and investing in detection software to maintain the traditional boundaries of the exam hall. These measures address the tools students use, but they ignore the reason these tools are so disruptive to the current curriculum. Generative AI acts as a stress test, revealing that the modern university is still operating on an obsolete 75-year-old architectural blueprint. We are watching a mid-20th century model struggle to function in an environment it was never designed to inhabit. To understand why the system is cracking, we have to look at the foundational assumption of scarcity that defined education in the 1950s. In this era, information was a rare commodity. It was difficult to access, expensive to print, and geographically confined to a few specific campuses. Knowledge was essentially trapped within the physical constraints of library stacks and the specialized expertise of a small number of professors. Because data was so hard to get, the 90-minute lecture and the closed-book exam were the only logical ways to distribute and verify information. The internet boom of the late 90s fundamentally replaced that scarcity with a sudden, localized abundance of information. Universities had an opportunity to redesign teaching methods, but most chose to simply digitize existing habits. The chalkboard became a PowerPoint. The handwritten handout became a PDF. While the format changed, the flow of knowledge remained a one-way, top-down transmission from lecturer to student. Outside the classroom, the environment was evolving rapidly. Social media and interactive gaming were conditioning a new generation to expect instant feedback and high levels of engagement. Students were spending their lives in hyper-responsive digital worlds, only to walk into a lecture hall and sit in silence for an hour and a half of passive listening. This created a psychological gap. The delivery method for education remained static, even as the way students processed information became more active and fast-paced. The limitations of this digitized 1950s model were fully exposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Transitioning to remote learning failed to engage students because it tried to replicate the physical lecture on a screen, ignoring that the captive audience of the classroom had disappeared. When lockdowns ended, the institutional response was to return to the old physical normal as quickly as possible, leaving the structural issues unaddressed. In late 2022, the widespread availability of generative AI created a new cognitive reality. Generative AI refers to systems like large language models that can synthesize new content, from essays to computer code, rather than just retrieving existing data. Unlike the internet, which acted as a digital library, AI functions as a cognitive proxy. It can think through the steps of a problem and execute the work on behalf of the user. This makes the final pillar of the old model, the isolated monitored exam, functionally obsolete. If a student and their AI tools are inseparable in a professional setting, testing a student's memory in a vacuum no longer provides a meaningful measure of their ability. We have reached a point where digital band-aids are no longer sufficient to keep the current system upright. Forcing a cognitive tool as powerful as AI into a framework designed for information scarcity results in a total structural failure. In technical fields like engineering, the goal should not be to build firewalls against these tools, but to determine what a degree actually represents when information is no longer the bottleneck. This requires a shift from adding technology to an old system to building a new system that assumes technology is the primary environment where students live and work. The 1950s blueprint worked because it solved the problem of limited access. To stay relevant, the next generation of higher education must solve the problem of how we think, create, and verify expertise in a world of absolute information abundance.